Listen, it all starts at the beginning. It starts with who owned the house in Gilgo Beach. Nobody brings that up. That was James Burke's house. James Burke, I'm not talking about Jimmy Conway, I'm talking about James Burke. He had to turn over the chief of Suffolk County Police Department. When that all took place, James got the call because that's a parkway. Gilgo is Ocean Parkway. That's New York State Troopers' jurisdiction, okay? Just like the other parkways.
Yes.
James Burke says, no, we got this. We'll take care of this. The state troopers called FBI. James Burke said, no, look, we'll take care of this. We got jurisdiction. He called Thomas Spoda. DA. Both of those guys got indicted, okay? That was James Burke's house. Rex was an architect. He worked for Jimmy Bissett. Jimmy Bissett kind of revitalized the downtown Riverhead section, the Hyatt Hotel. That's what Rex did. He became good friends with Jimmy Bissett. Jimmy Bissett whacked himself after James Burke got caught for beating Chris Loeb. They beat him so bad they knocked him unconscious because he went into Burke's police car, his SUV, and took a duffel bag, full of all the proof. As soon as that happened, Jimmy Bissett whacked himself in Mattatucket at the playground. 2 days later, his right-hand man, Bob Landry, whacked himself in the house in Jamesport. It starts at the top. Rex, was the door, it was card parties at the house. Rex was the guy who called the girls and brought them over there. It was card night. It was Saturday night card night at Burke's house. Rex was the doorman. He makes me look small, okay? So what happened was these girls started finding out who they're dealing with. They want to extort them for fucking money, and they want to extort them for who they are. So Rex.
I think we lost Johnny there momentarily. Hold on a second, Johnny. We had to dump you. You were on a roll, but you dropped the F-bomb, so we had to.
I'm sorry.
No, we had to clean it up with a little fell snap to soap. It's okay. Continue, Johnny, because you are on a roll and you are correct. Go ahead.
No, I know I'm not correct. This is what happened. So Rex says, to the girls, don't worry, I'll drive you home. Snap their neck and whack them. Now listen, Jimmy Bissett owned before he whacked himself. He owned the biggest nursery, two nurseries on Long Island. He sells burlap. All those girls are wrapped in burlap. Landscapers, I know they don't do it in Canarsie in East New York, but out here by the compound, I live by Fredo, the baseball bat compound, okay?
Yes.
Out east, Southampton. That's where I'm at. All the landscapers use burlap. Jimmy Bissett was the biggest landscape supplier on Long Island, burlap. Okay? How come? So that's why Burke said, no, we got this. We'll take care of that. Yeah, he brought dogs. Yeah, he brought drug dogs. They don't sniff bodies. But no state police were allowed and no FBI had jurisdiction. Both Burke did jail time, indicted, cover up. So you watch this guy Rex. He's going to drop two names. He's going to drop Jimmy Bissett because he can't talk because he whacked himself, and he's going to drop James Burke. He's going to drop. He's going to be a two-legged rat. He's going to do it because they're going to whack him in jail. So he's going to do life, but maybe he'll get 25 and he'll do 12.
No, that's excellent information, Johnny.
That's the math.
It's what I've been talking about here without connecting all the dots like you've been able to do that. But what I saw...
I live out there.
Right.
I live out there, and I played cards at that house. That's why nobody says who owned the house. Who owned the house? Nobody will say who owned the house.
So the police chief, James Burke, owned the house.
X.
That's right, X. And I think he was also head of the Conservative Party out there.
Oh, yeah, and he was on a tape. You know, he was on a tape. Rex was a big architect. He did the Hyatt Hotel in Riverhead, downtown Riverhead, with Jimmy Bissett. Jimmy Bissett, James Burke, all connected. Connect the dots. Nobody says who owned that house, and that's why New York State Police would not do the investigation, and FBI they're all thrown out. So now we have I know Harrison, whatever, listen, he's a bag of shit. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's all right. You're giving us good information, so I'm going to clean it up, Johnny, because you're connecting the dots. I basically set the table, and you're putting out the fork, the knife, the plates. This is good information because you're right. Burke, in the back of his vehicle, he had that duffel bag with all kinds of sex toys in it, handcuffs, things used to restrain probably some of these hookers too. And then this guy steals it, and then he almost kills the guy for stealing it. So you're on to it, Johnny. You're on to it.
Burke tied him up, hog-tied him hands and feet, and beat him unconscious. He had to go to the hospital because they almost put him in a coma. That's how he ratted. All these guys were going to go down. They were all going to go down. That's why Jimmy Bissett whacked himself. Bob Landry, he whacked himself. They were next.
Well, they're too busy, Johnny. Instead of unearthing these details like you've done, they're too busy patting each other on the back like what a wonderful job they've done. And you know, and I know, that a lot of those guys involved in the investigation knew this a long time ago, and they did nothing.
They couldn't. They couldn't. They couldn't. They listen. They got a job. They want to finish. They get finished their 20 years, and now everybody's talking. Two names are going to be brought up. It's going to be Jimmy Bissett and James Burke. Two names are going to be brought from this guy. He was the architect for them. That's what he did. And the reason that house looks like a shithole.
Oh, we have to let him go. 3 strikes and you're out, Johnny.
Good morning, Curtis. Unfortunately, with Jimmy Bissett, I was a volunteer at the aquarium. Jimmy Bissett was involved building the aquarium in Riverhead. He had his nursery in Holtzville. I used to work in Holtzville. I worked for the government. However, I was a volunteer for the aquarium. He had a tour because he was housing all the fish, these fish and turtles and all this kind of exhibits in his big nursery in Holtzville, where he used to drive by to go to work every day. But that had nothing to do with me being a volunteer at the aquarium. Well, then he shut himself in his car, and they kept talking about the burlap. But now the whole story came unfolded. That guy, Johnny, that called up, told the whole story perfectly.
Yep, Maria. I want to salute. I want to salute Johnny. You know, he had a little foul language. I had to let that go. But he told the story, Maria, as you know, and I know perfectly.
And one other thing, Curtis, my husband and I used to fish down at that whole strip of Ocean Parkway from West End to Robert Moses. We were very, very, very familiar with that whole area, and we always said this would be a perfect place to drop bodies of anybody. And it was unfortunate how that whole it's like really a whole business of what went on at that house and all that kind of stuff is a very very not a nice life to live, right? You know what I'm trying to say?
Right, but Maria, you know what they're trying to do here. They're trying to mask over it. They're hoping to close this case. Nobody should go back. Nobody should unearth the facts of Jimmy Bissett and that crooked head of the police, James Burke, and of the Conservative Party. Don't go there. Let's just talk about the great work we're doing now by bagging the architect Rex. But Johnny was so spot on. I hope this guy sings like there's no tomorrow about all these guys. But
like a little bird.
There's a very good possibility, Maria. This guy will end up. We'll find out he got Epstein. He hung himself.
Yeah.
You know how these things work, Maria.
I do. And I just had another thought that well, anyway.
No, it's okay. Share it because this is the only program where this is going to happen. Everybody else is worshiping at the altar of the officials. Can you believe, Maria, that Ballone actually came on our airwaves and said, every day I wake up and I'm tortured by this, that we didn't resolve this. You know Ballone knew all these people. You know they knew everything that went on at that house. And how these women were just killed, murdered, because why? They're prostitutes, and they figured nobody would care.
Well, people do care. You know that. People, poor women and men that get involved with all that stuff. Everybody knows. If you know what goes on with that, Now, I was just going to wonder, was that a pizza made with the coals, or was it one of those wood?
That's right.
Pizza oven? I'm trying to make a joke of a lighter situation.
No, that's a very good joke. We have to ask that. But imagine, Marie, as much as you know, as much as Johnny knows, we know there are other people in Suffolk who know even more.
Yeah, I'm a good girl. I'm a good girl.
Right, and I
know I'm aware of all that.
Right,
stuff,
but Maria, if you come across them, as I have come across them over the years, they have a microphone here at WABC with me where they can get this all out. Get it all out, because they're going to whack this guy Rex inside that jail. They're going to find him hung, with his sheets, and they're going to say, oh, but we had him observed. He was under suicide watch. This guy's going to be Epstein. He's going to be Epstein. God, you can see it, Maria. I can see it. Johnny can see it, because we're just common people with common sense. And yet all these officials, they were so, we're wonderful, we're great. They know what went on. They're not talking.
They were trying to hide it in the sand.
Yep.
I used to fish over there where they dump. I could have used to fish over there.
In fact, you go from the Mauritius down all along Gilgo Beach, that whole area there off Ocean Parkway, and it was a killing fields.
Yeah.
And everybody knew that people were being killed and dumped off there, and nothing.
And ignoring it.
Right.
And trying to cover it under the sand and the water and the mud flats and the
imagine
and all that.
An Asian guy was found there, a 2-year-old child.
I know.
Well, they weren't prostitutes. So why? They were there. There was no investigation about that. They just, nothing we could do. Shh, quiet.
And real quick, Channel 12, the Long Island TV station, did play that tape that you played of that poor woman.
Oh, good.
That woman. There was a movie made, I know there was a movie made. It was on Netflix.
Yes.
Anyway, you're doing a great job, Chris.
Well, Maria,
always.
please
as always.
Continue to let people know.
Yes.
They have a place where they can be heard on this issue. The officials want to stifle it. The police, the sheriffs, everybody out there wants this all to go away. I will never let this go away.
No.
Never. And I am shocked that some of my colleagues here, all of a sudden, they were like dancing the horror, the tarantella. Like, what are you crazy? The cover-up that went there for 10 years? There was a 911 tape. This woman, so fragile, so in need of help. And they claim that She perished accidentally. Really? Our number is 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-WABC. Let's go to Joey in the Bronx. Your turn to be heard here at WABC, Joe.
Hey, Curtis. Do you recall hearing about, I believe it might have been Burke's car being broken into and some sex toys being stolen from his car, and it really pissed him off badly? Do you think that that Asian male might have been the culprit? And do you think that there's a second serial killer? What about the possibility of calling in the FBI after this to just forensically go over everything, all the details, things found at the site, to see if any evidence was overlooked?
Well, the FBI is now involved. When the new DA came in and Rodney Harrison, as much as I don't like Rodney Harrison, the new police commissioner who came in from the NYPD, he was part of the defund the police movement instead of resigning. They both contacted the FBI. The FBI has been involved with them. But you're absolutely correct. There was some local guy, if my memory serves me correct, his name I think was Christopher Loeb. And he broke into, I believe it was Burke's Jeep, stole a blue duffel bag, which contained a lot of pornography, handcuffs, restrictive devices that you would use in sadomasochistic beatings and whippings and that. And that when Burke found out, he went absolutely nuts. And apparently, with the aid of other off-duty cops, they found the guy, and they beat him within like an inch of his life. An inch of his life. Now, the young guy who broke in to the car and took the duffel bag claimed that there were DVDs in there that featured footage of masked men torturing prostitutes, which is very consistent with what we believe took place in that house that we were talking about earlier, that Johnny in Southampton was about Jimmy Bassett and James Burke and all of that, which would make you believe that that's what would have enraged the police commissioner Burke, is that this young guy, Loeb, had discovered this treasure chest of all these DVDs of these guys beating the living daylights out of these hookers. I think Joe has faded off into the hereafter. That's more information than I think he could digest. Our number is 1-800-848-9222. It's 1-800-848-WABC. Look. There's a lot of stuff that links Burke to these tortures and murders of these prostitutes. Nobody wants to say anything. Because remember, you bust one for this, and they're all going to open up, and they're going to be like canaries, ratting each other out. They figure they got away with murder, right? Everybody figures, hey, that was then, this is now. Serial killings are not going on now. That was back in the 90s. That was back in the early 2000s. You know, it's been quiet since. Right? Let bygones be bygones. No, sorry. You're doing a press conference, and a banner is hanging over you at Suffolk County today that said, no man is above the law. The gall, the chutzpah, the couillons to have that banner over their head. They knew that there were people in that room that they were doing the press conference with who knew everything that had gone on. Everything.
Good morning, Curtis. I knew a guy who his father was a made man, got whacked. And so he told me a lot of stories, and a lot of them rang true. So anyway, when this all happened with the Gilgo, he goes, oh, name 5 guys. Oh, that's Burke, this guy, this guy, this guy. They play cards out there all the time, and they get hookers. So what I'm wondering is, Is there any connection between all these political guys and the castle with the mob? Is all this related to the mob somehow?
Oh, there is. Let me tie it up for you, Steve. As we mentioned, Oheka Castle. Right. Frank Morano should confess, along with the guy that he's had on, who was the former head of the Independence Party, Frank McKay. They tried to get me to go to a luncheon out there. I said, I'm not going out there. Somebody will whack me. They almost whacked the owner, shot him right underneath the eye. All on tape. Suffolk County Police Department, Steve, has it all on tape. The guy rolls up in a Cherokee Jeep. He gets out. He's wearing a fedora. 3 shots he puts into Gary Mellors' towards his head. One of them goes right underneath the eye. Thankfully, the owner survived. And that was in 2014. And, Steve, you think they've resolved that?
No.
Let's go to Dave in Long Island. Your turn to be heard here on WABC, Dave.
Hi, Curtis. I was wondering what you might know about the Manorville killer, who apparently was supposedly this one. He dumped a couple of bodies in the Gilgo Beach burial grounds as a sign of disrespect against his rival serial killer. This is what was talked about in one of the documentaries I saw. Have you heard about that one?
I've heard about it. I'm not as cogent on those details. If I remember correctly, the guy, I think it was Bitteroff or something like that, his name. I think he was charged with some murder there. I'm not as totally connected to that as I am to some of the unsolved killings, but as you can see, there's a hell of a lot of unsolved and solved serial killings out throughout Long Island, Nassau, and Suffolk ever since the late 80s and early 90s, Dave. And by all different kind of people. And, you know, it's not like they were all together, like I believe some of these killings were involved with guys who were torturing these prostitutes and then killing them on the South Shore. I truly believe that's what was transpiring, and that's why the big cover-up there. But as you mentioned, the Manorville killer was separate from all of that. And you scratch your head and say, how can all of this be happening in such a really small area? Nassau to Suffolk is not that large an area.
Well, I think it's pretty big, actually. I mean, look, you got 3 or 4 million people between Nassau and Suffolk. It's practically the size of Brooklyn and Queens. So you should expect comparable number of murders, you know?
Yeah, but that Manorville murder, I think he was charged with like 3 murders. I think he's up in Clinton State Prison. Again, they think he may be responsible for others, but I think that was resolved by DNA, if I remember correctly, Dave. But look, there's so many of them. You realize how many of them there are?
A couple of dozen, right? At least a couple of dozen.
But think, California, which has always been the epicenter of serial killers, you know, the Night Stalker, we can go on and on, the Zodiac Killer. But that's a state of 40 million people. That's the largest state in the nation. And Nassau and Suffolk is comparable in a much smaller, limited area with a much smaller population than 40 million.
Well, I'll bet you there's a lot of other serial killers we don't know about all across the country and around the world. It's just that the authorities haven't made connections yet in a lot of those cases.
Right, you know? But in the case out there in Long Island, it's not that they didn't know. It's that they chose to do nothing, and in fact, in many instances, covered up.
John Bitteroff was a client of mine, and so was Manny Lopez. I was the victim of domestic abuse. While I was living at the Leaside Towers in Toronto, my condo was broken into by Manny Lopez, and he brutally assaulted me. The police in Toronto were completely useless and did nothing. I lived in New York City, suspicion on me. Yes, folks, the Toronto police are incompetent imbeciles. They have bungled countless cases and are completely useless.
Yes, hi, Curtis. I have a few questions. The girl's name was Gilbert, the girl that ended up in the swamp?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes. Okay. So the driver that drove her there, did he wait for her while she was there, or did he leave the premises? Do you know if he was waiting for her outside?
Yes. That's what the report says, that in fact that as she was inside with the John, who
was a dentist, I remember. He was a dentist.
Correct. And while he was there with she was inside with the John, he waited outside. He had driven her from Jersey City. That's where the arrangement.
Now, why wouldn't she just get in the car and say, let's get out of here? You know what I'm saying? Like, were they chasing her? Why would she just not get, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't make sense.
Well, you see, what happens is, and think back to Bill Cosby, how he would give the young ladies he was with Quaaludes.
Right.
So she was a drug addict to begin with. Everybody knew that. That's why she was doing prostitution to satisfy her drug need. But let's say she took some kind of drug to sedate her because, gee, you know, in a business like that, I think I'd want to be sedated almost all the time.
Okay.
And
or they could have given her something as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then remember, she doesn't know that area. She's not from that area. She's knocking on doors of the neighbor. This guy lived in the Oak Beach Association gated community. They naturally probably didn't want to open it up. She probably was disheveled. And then she makes that 911 call. Boy, that was haunting, Deborah. That was haunting.
Very.
And you would have...
was she closed, do you know, or not? Was she not closed? That's I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I believe she had her clothes on.
Okay, all right.
But can you imagine? Can you imagine that they just slammed shut the investigation by saying, "Oh, what happened to Shannan Gilbert? Oh, it was a tragic accident, a non-criminal. She ran into the marshes." How the hell did they know that?
Exactly. Didn't she say, or I heard that she said they're trying to kill me. They're trying to kill me.
Not to that. Right. Not to. In fact, let's if we can, let's listen to the 911 call. The specificity of it. You'll listen to this tortured soul who doesn't know where she is and is in desperate need of help.
There's somebody after me.
Where are you?
There's somebody after me.
Okay, where are you?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you, ma'am?
I don't know.
You're driving right now?
No, I'm inside the house.
I'm sorry?
I'm inside the house.
What house?
I don't know. Can you trace where I am?
I'm sorry?
Can you trace where I am?
No, I can't. What's your callback number you're calling from?
Huh?
What phone number are you calling from?
Somebody's after me. Please.
Are you in Suffolk County or Nassau County?
I'm in Long Island.
So, Deborah, she just didn't know where she was. She was clearly in the house, probably in either the guy's house, Joseph Brewer, the John, or maybe in another house where she was being held and possibly in the aftermath of that was killed and then dumped into the marsh.
Yes, absolutely. It sounds like they were maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, trying to make those films. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the snuff films.
Snuff films? Yes, exactly. There's definitely more people involved. It sounds like a ring. And like dominoes, we're going to get them all because this is just the beginning.
And we have to get also those people who knew what went on. They may not have participated, but knew what went on and did nothing because they figured leave well enough alone.
Trace that phone call when that young lady was begging for help. Did she have a burner phone or something? Why couldn't she? Said she was in a house. That should have been easily traced through antennas. and through GPS on her phone and phone number. And what's up with that dispatcher? Why didn't they take all that down as much as possible? Try to figure out something. Hold on, and keep talking. And try to leave the house, and we'll find you. We'll find you. What's up with that?
No, you're absolutely correct, Pamela. I will give the benefit of the doubt to the dispatcher that she probably was not experienced and never really dealt with anything like that. I don't think she was part of any conspiracy. But it's clear, you're right, that Shannan Gilbert was in somebody's house. Now, was she in the original John's house, Joseph Brewer, at his home in the Oheka Beach Association gated community, or another house in that gated community which she was forcibly taken to? That's what I believe.
Yeah, she had the wherewithal to make that phone call, so she wasn't totally out of it, but she was traumatized.
Oh,
and somebody should have led her through that, and it was heartbreaking.
And then to find out that they took 10 years to release that tape. And, the only reason they released that tape is the family was filing a lawsuit because they had had enough. They were like, wait a second. We know you have this tape. You've acted like you can't release it, like it's some kind of a international secret that would affect the balance of peace between Russia and the United States, Red China and the United States. So it was all specious. And then finally they released it in 2022. That in itself alone is suspicious, Pamela.
I mean, even like, in an emergency situation when somebody's being attacked, some really good dispatchers, use everything in the book to try to figure out where this person is or how to help them and everything. And yeah, the dispatcher did their lawful duty. They asked these pertinent questions. But come on, the poor girl. Oh, my goodness. Oh, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. And they can trace stuff through antennas. Unless I guess she had maybe a burner phone, being, the business that she was in. But I don't know, just something.
Yeah, well,
describe the house, anything.
Again,
describe the house. What does the house look like?
Right.
She could have asked her anything.
Right.
Because the poor girl was disoriented. She couldn't tell, which end was up.
Yeah, well, they had probably drugged her up.
Right.
Probably
right.
drugged her up. She was probably able to sneak away for a second. Like you said, disoriented. She doesn't know that area. She was from Jersey City. She's trying the best she can. It's like if you've ever been under the influence of a Quaalude, which I think she may have been given, everything is spinning, everything is moving in slow motion. The poor young lady is very innocent. You can hear the innocence in her, like begging for help. It's almost like she was ready to say, Mommy, help me, Mommy, where are you, Mommy?
Yeah, I can't. I woke up to that, and it's like, oh, my God, shocking, that poor thing. Oh, you're right there with her, and it's horrible.
And because they had to search for her, and they found her in the marshes and then immediately disputed how she died. So it was a tragic accident. She drowned. Yeah, right. They found all these other bodies. Oh, how convenient. Right in that same area, they found all these other bodies. I suppose they killed themselves and wrapped themselves in tarp, all conveniently resting within proximity of one another. I mean, we know what happened to this woman. In fact, I want everybody, again, as Pamela has hit it at, I want you to listen to Shannan Gilbert. Her desperate cry for help. Now, you need to understand that all these victims were short, happened to be Caucasian. They had hazel eyes. They all had a somewhat similar. How is it they all had hazel eyes? Think about that. How is it they were all short? Do you think the monsters that did this, that were making the snuff films, do you think they had within their mind a prototype of what they wanted when they were scouring Craigslist or they were looking at profiles of young ladies who were being pimped out or who were making themselves available? how is it that all the victims looked somewhat similar to one another? All white, all generally from locations not within immediate proximity. Think about that.
Listen, I grew up in Massapequa, moved out to East Islip to raise a family. I got shaken down for a bribe by the McGowan crime org in Islip, and I got wrecked. I got destroyed. I became a political blogger. I sued in federal court. I tried to expose everything, but boy, did I get – they just wrecked me. And I left the East Coast, moved out to Pottsville, Pennsylvania, thinking I could get away from it. Then Oregon, when the duly elected sheriff of Suffolk County, Vince DeMarco, and he really carried the water to try to expose all this. He was going up against Spoder, protecting not only Burke but Eddie Walsh. Curtis.
That's right.
What I do want to
now the Eddie Walsh, if I remember, that was a state senator.
No, he was the undersheriff.
Okay, all right.
He was the conservative party leader.
Yes,
not Jimmy Burke. Okay, I just want to, with all that you can't get everything perfect.
Anyway. Thank you for correcting me on that. In fact. Just so you know, Brian, I remember going out and speaking at a conservative party dinner in Suffolk County where, that's right, I'm trying to remember, Walsh, you're correct, and then there was Burke there.
Listen, that was Spoder's two proteges, was Walsh and Burke, and he groomed them. They were out doing their own thing and corruption on all different, everything you can imagine. One other thing I want to take very quickly is the Gary Melius attempted murder.
Yes.
That Eddie Walsh with the crooked Judge Whalen and cahoots with Melius were trying to steal a company out in Mastic Shirley that were making interlocutor devices for, breathalyzer on the steering wheels. And Whalen, the judge, with Eddie Walsh in the gallery there, with Melius suing to try to take the company from him, Whalen railroaded the owner, Gary Rauka, I think his name is. That's what I believe led to the attempted murder up in Oheka Castle, where everybody was playing cards there. Burke, Walsh, D'Amato, everybody would be up there, whining and dining by Gary Melius, who was as protected as anybody could be. But again, I'm absolutely amazed at how much, that you get into so many things, and you're all over the place.
Well, Brian, let's deal with Oheka Castle. You remember a few weeks ago, Sid was raving about how he was going to spend his 30th wedding anniversary there with Danielle. It's a beautiful location.
Oh, I've been there. It's incredible.
Right.
My cousin's daughter got married there, and unbelievable. And you can understand why these people would like to use that as a clubhouse, because these crooked power elites, and I'm sorry that's what they are.
Oh, yeah.
It's spectacular. Have you been there?
I've passed it. I haven't gone inside. Now, this is the interesting story. So Frank Morano, who I thought was my friend, invites me to a brunch at Oheka Castle. He says, well, there are people there who want to help the guardian angels. I can't be there, Curtis, but you just go there. There's going to be a lunch, and you get to talk to them. They want to help the guardian angels. And I'm saying to myself, wait a second. They've already tried to kill me one time, shot me 5 times with hollow point bullets, the Gottis and Gambinos. Gary Melius just almost got executed there. It's all on tape. The Suffolk County Police Department has the tape. It's a guy in a fedora, no mask on. He's blasting Gary Melius right through the windshield, shoots him right under the eye. Thankfully, he survives. Yep. Gary knows who it is.
Yes, he did. He did. He even said it, but nothing's going to come of it. He knew that everything's going to be protected, because if they went down the road on that, it would have gone from Gary to Eddie Walsh to the Judge Whalen to the whole corruption.
Exactly. So you think I'm going to show up at a brunch at Oheka Castle, where I know in Oyster Bay Cove and Oyster Bay all my enemies live? You got to be out of your mind.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, nobody ever talks about that. Or what do they like to talk about? The same thing. Oh, Anthony Weiner got married to Yuma. You know, Bill did the ceremony. Hillary was there. It was a beautiful location. A lot of trendoids came. Yeah, that has nothing to do with the corruption in Suffolk County. The corruption is the owner got executed. Thank God he survived. They have it on tape, and the Suffolk County Police Department never did anything about it.
That's because they, as you stated, everybody knows they're told they don't want to. They want to cover it up. They just want to make it disappear. No one is as connected as Gary Milius out there on Long Island. And again, just quickly, I got shaken down for a bribe by McGowan. I was a political blogger, which is what really, brought their ire out against me. Got wrecked. Okay. Christopher Loeb was the kid who broke into Burke's SUV.
Right.
After he was beaten and released, he contacted me because people told him I was somebody that would mess with these people. He was looking for a lawyer at the time. He was going to go with this guy, Bruce Barkett. Bruce Barkett is a part of the problem. He works for those people that wish to cover all this stuff up, right? I recommended a guy by the name of Ron Kuby. You ever hear of him?
Oh, yeah. That used to be my partner.
Yeah, I know. Kuby, he was nice enough to take my call. He spoke to Loeb. Then he worked with Barkett. And Loeb, when he first spoke to me, he said that in the gym bag when he contacted me, and his recall of the events was incredible. But, how they had beaten him, and when Burke came in, he was chained to the floor. Burke came in to surveil what was being done by his guys, and he slapped him in the head. His neck was chained to the floor, Chris Loeb. He picked his head up enough because he had seen what was in the bag. First, he told me it was child porn in the bag, which we knew that Burke was trafficking in many things, and child porn was one of them. But then later on, he said it was snuff films, which I never understood why he changed to snuff films. He might have done it so that he could connect it up to the overall narrative. But anyway, they put him through the meat grinder, Loeb. I was vetted to have Loeb come out with me when I was hiding out in Oregon, because I left in 2014 when DeMarco told me they were all going to prison. And again, Vince DeMarco knows everything that went on, and if he had done what he did by creating illegal magic to being able to go around SPOTA to get to Loretta Lynch, who was the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District at the time, to bring charges against Walsh. But they sandbagged Curtis. Loretta Lynch was told, leave SPOTA and Burke alone. They're good guys. They're good fellows, all right? It was only when that asshole, Jimmy Burke, when he was illegally surveilling Loretta Lynch's phone calls when she was promoted up to U.S. Attorney General for her good work with protecting Burke and SPOTA, that they said, we got to go put SPOTA and Burke on ice because they're out of control.
Our number's 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Brian in Long Island. Your turn to be heard here at WABC, Brian.
Hey, Curtis, man, I love you, man. You do a great job. You're a national treasure. You're a New York treasure, man. I just can't believe how much energy you have, how you've been around so many different places. It's great. You're really great, bro.
Well, got a lot to say, a lot to share, and let's face it, eventually we won't have that kind of energy. We won't have that kind of ability, so we got to get it out. We got to share it with as many people as possible and undo the wrongs.
Right. I did want to mention, I don't know if you mentioned Joel Rifkin. I have firsthand information from people in East Med. I grew up on Long Island. Joel Rifkin was severely abused as a high schooler, and he became a serial killer, but he became a serial killer under the radar, the opposite of like a Son of Sam, where he taunted Breslin and the news. He got away with this for 10. As a matter of fact, they interviewed him when this happened, and he seemed to be grinning that he was a big expert on serial killers, whether there was only one serial killer dumping bodies there or multiple. But he was really abused, and people don't realize when they abuse somebody, they could create a monster. I would like to talk about some of the other stuff about Joel, but I don't know if you mentioned Joel Rifkin in this show.
Oh, yeah, just for the edification of our other listeners, because I have called Long Island the house of serial killers. It's got more serial killers per capita, per square inch than anywhere else in the nation. And I remember the case of Joel Rifkin. He was 34, an unemployed landscaper from East Meadow. He confessed to killing 17 women that he said were prostitutes following his arrest in 93. Remember, they caught him with a dead woman in his vehicle. And that's what led to them discovering that he had killed up to 17 women just by himself.
Yes, and the thing is, he was really abused. I mean, badly. They supposedly locked him in a locker for the weekend in the school, and I mean, it's sad. I mean, it's terrible. But that's supposedly the story. He had a body his mother supposedly drove that car with a body in the car. He was caught with a license plate, and he took off from the police, Southern State Parkway. As a matter of fact, that was 93. This is 30 years now. I think it was in June that he got caught.
And think of it, though, at the very same time, Brian, just a half a mile away, Robert Schulman, the 42-year-old worker for the United States Postal Service, he would deliver mail in Hicksville, was found to have killed 5 prostitutes. 5. Just a half a mile away.
Right. Why is Long Island, do you think, per capita? This is a fact. Why is this? Why is Long Island?
I have my own theory, and I'll share it with everyone. If you talk to people in Long Island, and this is what I hinted at earlier, if they're from the North Shore, they look down on people who live on the South Shore. They think they're all three-eyed cousin fornicators who live in trailer parks, and they'll barely entertain dealing with anyone in Mid-Island. But that's not the reason. I believe, if you notice, in Nassau, and more specifically Suffolk County, there's a lot of people who have homes with no piped water. They still have the old sump holes, the old cesspools, and then they draw their water off the aquifer, which under normal circumstances would be okay. But when it's mixing with the sewage that's coming through the cesspool, and then all the poisons that have existed from previous industrial output, whether it's Lockheed or other big Defense Department developers who had these huge developmental plants out there, I think, Brian, when you mix all the chemicals and then the sewage from humans through the water that's being used from the aquifers, that's like a toxic recipe, so that if you're already a little titched or a little bots, you're exposed to that you might get cancer more likely, but it may also alter the way you think, and all of a sudden you become a psychotic killer.
Well, I have to agree with you. You make an excellent point. Grumman had a terrible facility of dumping all this stuff, and now then again, they didn't do anything about it. That plume is coming all the way down. There's those forever chemicals. You make a good point. It could be a chemical a cause of a lot of this. Mental cancer is huge on Long Island.
Right. Well, think of it this way, Brian. Most of people's water in Nassau County is now piped in. Most of the sewage is piped out. Well, you go to Suffolk County, a lot of people still have cesspools. A lot of people still draw off the aquifer. And I truly believe that because they're exposed to those toxins, to the waste, and it's mixed in with their fresh water, and then you have all those chemicals, as I mentioned, that are the leftover of the industrial production, especially in preparation for World War II and for the Korean War and during the Cold War. And Long Island, especially Suffolk County, was an area where there was a lot of that industrial military hardware produced. I think my theory is spot on. Love to see if anybody else agrees with me that it has to do with the water being pulled from the aquifer. unfortunately mixing with the waste that goes through the sump holes, the cesspools, and then all the other chemicals, the residue that has been left there from industrial production over the years. Our number is 1-800-848-9222.